This is Oromo Voice Radio English program. Oromo Voice Radio is broadcasting to Oromia at 16-meter band or 17,850 kilohertz or on oromovoice.org website. OVR broadcasts Oromia Insight program every Monday for 15 minutes at 7:15 p.m. Oromia local time. Welcome to Oromia Insight program.
Welcome to Oromia Insight. My name is Ali Galato. This is part 2 interview about President Obama visit to Kenya and Ethiopia with Tsegaye Ararsa from Melbourne Law School.
Because it looks like they are looking for an approval from another hegemonic imperial power. And the opposition also, when they resisted, the Ethiopian political opposition, the political class, when they resisted it, it is because America's gesture of visiting Ethiopia, they think, will baptize Ethiopia into democracy, will kind of make us consider Ethiopia as a very democratic country. And they think both groups, whether they are the supporters of the government or those who are in opposition, they both think that America is the one who gives certification for the democratic or undemocratic status of a country in Africa. Now, this is very interesting. This is very paradoxical for Ethiopians who always pride themselves for resisting white colonialism when they want an external reference for approval of how democratic they are or how undemocratic they are. And that's kind of a surprising twist to it. But be that as it may, the regime wants to enhance its democratic credential. It wants to enhance recognition by the West as a credible ally in the geopolitical war against terrorism. They want to enhance their achievement, their recognition for their achievement of economic growth in that part of the world. So it's a big boost for them. They are already celebrating like that. But Americans, of course, say, no, we're not trying to say that this is a democratic state. We know that it is an authoritarian state, they actually said many times, but they say it is a friendly authoritarian state. What they miss in this process is that Ethiopia, at the moment, is not really authoritarian. It's beyond that. It is totalitarian. It is clearly anti-democratic. They think it is a friendly authoritarian state. I think, no, they miss the point that it is a clearly anti-democratic state. It is anti-democratic in making, it is anti-democratic in its operation, it is anti-democratic in the way it deals with things every day. At the moment, true to its nature, the Ethiopian state is not only a non-democratic, it is actually presiding over, this government now is presiding over an apartheid state where less than 6% of the population, a party that has a constituency in less than 6% of the population, or generally about 30% of the population, are basically ruling over the large majority of the Ethiopian people. So they miss that, but of course the Ethiopian regime thinks that it is a celebration of its democratic achievement, its economic progress, and its being a credible ally, strategic ally to the West in the war against terrorism.
How does it affect the struggle for democracy and the human rights in the region, especially for the peoples under century of imperial oppression in the region, oppression inaugurated and maintained by international actors such as the U.S.?
Well, it all depends on how Obama is going to play out his leverage now. Because President Obama's visit to the region is very, very important and is being watched by many, many, many young people who had high hopes both for him and for their own future. Many young people have been inspired by him just at the moment of achieving the presidency. Barack Obama is an iconic person. He has an iconic universal image of someone who has done the impossible, the black president in the White House. He has been the president that served as icon of hope. He wrote a book, The Audacity of Hope. He always considers his presidency as an achievement after an improbable quest. He is the one who made those speeches, who said in the victory speech in 2008, he said, for people anywhere in the world, if you are dreaming of democracy, we are here to help. And he was very inspirational, and his visit is very important. And he could use this leverage either to encourage the aspiration for democracy or to discourage and frustrate and disappoint those who aspire to achieve democracy and human rights and self-governance. Now, how would he play? As he said this afternoon, if he is going to really take that agenda seriously and take it to the government in Ethiopia and in Kenya, and take it to them in such a way that, look, he understands where they are. By the way, it is a coincidence that made their interest in fighting terrorism, American interest in fighting terrorism in the region, converge with the Ethiopian interest in decimating its opponents. It's a convergence. They have different interests, by the way. The Americans think they are fighting terrorism, and the Ethiopians want to fight their opponents in the name of terrorism. So they have made the impossible thing converge there. So there is this coincidence or overlap of interest, but it is not the same kind of interest. Now, even having noted this, if he now insists on the need to turn the page on human rights and democracy in the region, I think he might be, cashing out his iconic image as someone who always inspired the young people towards achieving what most consider impossible. So the struggle for democracy, for human rights, will be enhanced depending on how he plays out his leverage now, how he uses his presence in that country, whom he meets, and what he says when he meets them. Obviously, he's going to meet the government, the prime minister, is going to meet probably the parliament. I don't know if it is a state visit. If he does, he needs also to engage the opposition political party leaders in different forums. He needs to engage the media, and what he does there might help to enhance some inspiration, might also, if he doesn't engage with these non-state actors, the civil society organizations, the political parties, the independent media, if he doesn't engage them and sympathize with them and understand them, he just visited the federal prisons in America. I do not expect him to visit prisoners in Ethiopia, but at least if he raises issues about the prisoners, about, for example, the over 5,000 Oromo prisoners, which no one talks about. If he does that, he might send that message again, that message of hope, and people might be inspired. But I wonder if Obama is going to play like President Obama, Barack Obama as the person, or if he is going to play like the President of the United States, because the presidency has a very limited leverage over what he can do on these things that are important to the domestic crowd in Ethiopia. So his visit might discourage or encourage the struggle for liberation, the struggle for democracy, the struggle for human rights, depending on how he plays it out.
We're about to run out of time. Just finally, what does the Obama visit mean to the Oromo in the world? The Oromo should...
Well, to the Oromo, this visit, Oromos are very ambivalent about this visit, I think, and rightfully so. The reason is because the Oromo are invisible in the Ethiopian state form. And even to a boy who has his roots in Kenya, very close to the Oromo people, the Oromo are invisible. So many have impressed it upon him that there are journalists who are imprisoned and so on and so forth. Of course, what they're talking about is not the Oromo journalists. They're talking about the Amhara journalists that are imprisoned from the elite urban political class in Ethiopia. Now, the Oromo issue is completely under the rug, and it is very difficult for Oromo to be visible. But this visit, if properly used by political forces, both within Ethiopia and outside of Ethiopia, might probably help to bring the Oromo issue to the fore and to bring Oromos from invisibility, the shadow of invisibility, to the realm of visibility and audibility. And there is that potential if the Oromo can use this moment very creatively and positively. Now, it's not easy because the regime now, of course, appears only as one party. It's not easy for the government to notice what is going on the ground, for the U.S. government, I mean. But it is very interesting. In the days when the master plan crisis was happening, Secretary of State John Kerry was in Addis, and he knew that there are things going on in Oromia. And in fact, he came out in the last press conference he had, he made sure that he knows about the issues, and he actually closed his statement with an Oromo word to express his gratitude. He said Galatoma, etc. So it looks like the State Department is coming to an increasing awareness of the plight of the Oromo in that country. Of course, the U.S. never supports a separation, for example, cessation, the Oromo right to self-determination. They do understand the justice of it, but they do not support cessation in the region for various reasons. One is they think cessation will destabilize the region, and it is not in the best interest of the United States to deal with another country, another political actor in that area. And second, it doesn't know what happens to the rump state, Ethiopia, without the Oromo. So one of the things that the Oromo leadership is expected to do now, the Oromo political leadership anywhere, has to do is to be able to know how to negotiate their relationship with the United States, how to critically engage with them, how to reflexively engage with them, because the U.S. recognized the state form that is in operation now, the Ethiopian state. And how do you engage America outside of that kind of channel? That's one challenge. The second is to make sure, to impress it upon the President and the United States State Department that the Oromo self-determination, the Oromo demand for justice, the Oromo demand for visibility and self-governance, the Oromo demand for democratic self-expression, the Oromo demand for human rights, and the Oromo demand for freedom of all those prisoners, political prisoners, and all these political cessation of these political trials is only in the best interest of the United States, because the Oromo demand for justice, when it is met, only guarantees the U.S. interest in stability in the region. So two things the Oromo leadership has to do. One, they must demonstrate credibility as leaders in the Horn of Africa. Remember, the Oromo is the single largest nation in the Horn of Africa, and it is a people, a nation whose population live in 3 countries, in at least 2 of them. And this population is very important. If you do not satisfy the demands of justice of this population, you cannot have a stable Eastern Africa region. So America, the Oromo leadership should impress it upon the United States leadership that this is how important it is, that the Oromo is very, very important. So establish a credible leadership quality in the Horn of Africa. Try to forge a moment of coincidence between the American interest in the Horn and the Oromo interest for justice in the region. Create an alliance that the Oromo can actually best secure the American interest while protecting its own interest, without, at least can achieve its own interest without endangering the U.S. interests, and negotiate their relationship reflexively. And that's a big task, and that's a huge toll. It's a tall order on us, but I think this is one of the things that they should do. And the Oromo question must be properly articulated with all its nuances, with all its contradictions, with all its paradoxes, and one needs to understand the fact that the Ethiopian state is still an empire state, that the last project of decolonization is still an unfinished business in Ethiopia, that the Oromo nation is still under operation, the operation that his grandfather knew in Kenya under the British. And it is important that we kind of make him understand that this is basically an imperial state, that this is basically an apartheid state, and it is in their best interest to ensure that the shackles of apartheid are broken in that region, and the shackles of empire are broken down on that region, and the Oromo people are free.
Thank you, Tsegaye. We leave it there. We hope we come back and discuss once President has actually finished the visit. And thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. It has been a pleasure to be on your show.